Hey guys, what's up? Danny Boy EDH here with another deck tech video for you. Today I'm talking about Naru Meha Master Wizard. It's a mono blue deck, so as you can imagine it's pretty control based, but it does hope to end the game with a combo. Yet another combo for you. We got Ghostly Flicker. Basically, if you have this on the stack, you can flash in Naru Meha and use its ETB ability to copy target instant or sorcery spell you control, and you may choose new targets for the copy. So basically you cast your Ghostly Flicker targeting 2 lands you control, and then you flash in Naru Meha choosing 1 land and Naru Meha, basically infinitely getting infinite blue mana and infinite ETBs to basically win the game from there. So one way with the ETBs would be if you have Altar of the Brood on the field, that will mill your opponents every time a permanent enters the battlefield. So every time Naru Meha enters, your opponents will mill 1. Basically, you can run their deck down to nothing. Or you can also use Sunscorched Desert as a land to enter. It could get you infinite colorless as well as dealing 1 damage to target player, so you could just ping everybody out with that entering the battlefield. So that is the main win con of the deck, is finding Ghostly Flicker. So a few ways to do that. We got Mystical Tutor to put it to the top of your library, and Merchant Scroll, which is a sorcery that will search you for a blue instant card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. And there are a couple other cards that will work in place of Ghostly Flicker. Illusionist Stratagem. It doesn't target lands, so you can't get infinite mana with it, but you can basically draw your entire library. And then Essence Flux and Siren's Ruse. These don't draw you anything or get you any mana, but if you have Altar on the field, you can mill everybody out that way. So these are the other options if, say, your Ghostly Flicker gets exiled or something like that. These are your other options to potentially combo off and win the game. And say you get infinite mana with Ghostly Flicker, you can draw your whole library using either Finale of Revelation, which will give you no maximum hand size for the rest of the game as long as and also untap 5 lands. It won't really matter if you have infinite mana, but Blue Sun Zenith will basically draw your whole library, with the exception of Blue Sun Zenith, which will go back into the library afterwards. And then Pull from Tomorrow can draw the library and then discard a card after. And we also have some buyback spells for your infinite mana. Wizards of the Muse, it draws you 1 card for 1, or you can pay 5 to bring it back to your hand. So if you have infinite mana, you can basically just buy it back infinitely, drawing your whole library. And Capsize similarly has buyback for 3. It's a 3 CMC to return target permanent to its owner's hand. So you can bounce everything on the field, even lands. And that will usually get you a scoop right there, but if not, we do have the Lab Maniac type effects to win the game with Thassa's Oracle, Laboratory Maniac, and Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. Thassa's Oracle is probably the most powerful because if you have enough mana, I think you would need 9 mana total to do it this way, but if you put Thassa's Oracle on the stack, you can respond to the ETB trigger and then go off with your combo. And say, even if you didn't have it, or you had Lab Man on the field, it's nice because Naru Meha does have Flash. So you can always hold up your mana with counter spells or something, and just go off at the end of somebody's turn or in response to something. So basically we want to get to 7 mana as fast as possible. So we've got A few mana rocks here, Mana Crypt, Soul Ring, Sapphire Medallion will make our blue spells cost 1 less. Cold Steel Heart enters tapped, choose a color, that'll be blue. Basically a Sky Diamond essentially. Enters tapped, taps for a blue. Thran Dynamo for some colorless acceleration. And since this is a mono blue deck, you can imagine it's got a lot of instants and sorceries in it. Basically, I got the draw spells here. Gitaxian Probe to look at target player's hand and draw a card. It's nice because you can do it for 0 mana. Brainstorm, Opt, and Preordain, good ways to check out the top of your deck before you draw. Vision Schemes, it does allow each player to draw 2 cards, so it could backfire, but it's nice because it's only 2 mana to draw 2 cards. Radical Idea is 2 mana to draw 1, but it does have Jumpstart, so you can discard a card and pay 2 again to draw and cast it from your graveyard. Flood of Recollection will return a target instant or sorcery card from your graveyard, most likely Ghostly Flicker. Everdream, it's a draw spell, but you can also splice it onto another spell. So say you cast Radical Idea, you can pay 3 here and then essentially draw 2. Think Twice, another 2 mana draw spell. This has Flashback. So basically, yeah, I got all these draw spells in here just to kind of go through your deck quickly, get to your combo pieces or your counter spells. Comparative Analysis has a surge cost, so it can cost you 3 mana at instant speed instead of 4. Reign of Revelation to draw 3 discard, or Jace's Ingenuity to draw 3 for 5. A lot of these are instant speed because I like to just basically pass the turn and hold up either counter spells or draw spells if I don't need to use the counters. Treasure Cruise is a sorcery, but you can delve to draw 3, so if you have enough chaff in your graveyard to get rid of, you can basically draw 3 for 1 mana at sorcery speed, which isn't bad. And Into the Story can cost 4 mana to draw 4 cards if an opponent has 7 or more cards in their graveyard. So if it's late enough in the game, you might be able to draw 4 for 4 at instant speed. And what would a blue deck be without Mystic Remora and Rhystic Study to help you draw some more cards? Get some fuel in there. We also have an As Foretold. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a time counter on it, and then once each turn, so that includes your opponent's turns, you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for a spell you cast with X or less, where X is the number of time counters on it. So if you get this out on turn 2 or 3, you're going to be doing pretty good. You can basically hold up a counter or a draw spell for each of your opponent's turns and cast it for free, which is nice. And then we'll get into the counter spells here. Pact of Negation for 0, and then on your next upkeep pay 5 or lose the game. It's a good last-ditch effort to stop somebody from going off or basically interrupting your combo if you're in the process of trying to pull it off. Spell Pierce and Miscast are some good cheap counter spells for 1 blue. Got Arcane Denial, Tail's End, Negate. Tail's End is nice because it gets legendary spells, so it's basically a counter target commander, but it also gets abilities as well. Classic counterspell, Mana Leak, Force of Negation. It's a really good one. It's not quite Force of Will, but if it's not your turn, you may exile a blue card from your hand rather than pay the 3 mana. And it does only get non-creature spells, but if it does counter the spell, it exiles it instead. We also got Sage's Dowsing. It's a tribal spell for wizard. By the way, Naru Meha is a wizard and is also a wizard lord, giving your other wizards +1/+1. I think all the creatures I have are wizards, so if you counter a spell, even if, say, well, yeah, you're gonna draw a card in addition. Pongify to destroy a creature in blue and give someone a 3/3 ape. Curse of the Swine is another good way to get rid of creatures in this deck. Exile X target creatures and its controller gets 2/2 boars in replacement. Into the Royal to bounce a non-land permanent to its owner's hand. And if you pay the 2 kicker cost, you can draw a card. Unsubstantiate will return a spell or creature to its owner's hand, so that can stop an uncounterable spell. Rapid Hybridization, another Pongify, essentially. Release to the Wind is a card that I like. Exile target non-land permanent. For as long as that card remains exiled, its owner may cast it without paying its mana cost. So if somebody's targeting Naru Meha, you can cast that. And since Naru Meha has flash, you can basically drop it in at any time for 0 mana. Winds of Rebuke is another bounce spell. Bounce target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Each player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. And Cyclonic Rift to wipe the board for your opponents. Now let's get into the creatures. Baral will reduce your instant sorcery spells by 1 generic mana, and whenever a spell or ability you control counters a spell, you may draw a card. If you do, discard a card. Vidalian Arcanist can tap for a colorless to spend only on instants or sorceries. And Mystic Archaeologist is another way to dump all your mana if you create infinite mana. It's another way to draw your library. Naiad of Hidden Coves is a great spell for this deck. As long as it's not your turn, spells you cast cost 1 less. So that would include Naru Meha as well. So basically, if you have 5 mana, you could cast Ghostly Flicker for 2 and then Naru Meha for 3. So that's a good way to accelerate your draws and counters. Trinket Mage will find you Altar of the Brood, or a Soul Ring or a Mana Crypt. Brazen Borrower has an adventure spell to return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand that an opponent controls. And it also is a flash flying 3/1 that can block only creatures with flying. It's not a wizard, and neither is this one, so those are probably the non-wizards for the deck. Then we got Seagate Oracle. When it enters the battlefield, look at the top 2 of your library. Put one of them into your hand and the other on the bottom of your library. So basically, if you don't have a draw spell or a Mystic Archaeologist, you can use Ghostly Flicker to target this and Naru Meha to get infinite draws that way. Reckless Scholar. This could definitely be a Merfolk Looter. Although I don't think Merfolk Looter is a wizard. I could be wrong. But just another way to go for card quality. Archaeomancer can get you a card back that you ditch with Reckless Scholar, or anything else that's in your graveyard, like a Ghostly Flicker or Counterspell. And we've got Talrand, which will get you a 2/2 blue Drake with flying each time you cast an instant or sorcery spell. So if your lab man gets destroyed or something, although I don't know if casting and copying would get you Drakes. I actually don't think that would get you infinite Drakes. Alright, so that is it for the deck. We got the land base here. We've got 29 basic islands, and I did show you the Sun-Scorched Desert earlier to deal damage with Ghostly Flicker. Reliquary Tower will give you no maximum hand size. Mystic Sanctuary should come in untapped, hopefully, because if you have 3 or more other islands, it will come in untapped. And when it enters untapped, you may put target instant sorcery from your graveyard on top of your library. And then Boseiju, who shelters all, comes in tapped, but you can tap it and pay 2 life to add a colorless mana. If it's spent on an instant sorcery, that spell can't be countered. So that is about it for the deck, guys. Let me know what you think. It's a pretty powerful deck. Not sure if it's quite a competitive tier, but it definitely has got me some nice wins. So yeah, let me know what you think in the comments below. And hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.